I would like to call the meeting to order, and I have an addition to add to the reading. As directed by Manitoba Health, we're requesting people avoid close contact within 2 meters with anyone showing symptoms of a respiratory illness such as coughing or sneezing. If you are experiencing flu-like symptoms, we are requesting that you excuse yourself from the room. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. The members of the panel today are Lynn Nesbitt to my left, Mark Beretsky to her left, and my name is Brent McIntyre, and I'll be the chair for today's hearing. The assessor for today is Arif Das Mohammed, and the secretary is Kara Balshaw. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessment properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Thank you. You may swear in.
So, Mr. Assessor, please state your name.
Arif Das Mohammed.
And do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Mr. Applicant, please state your name.
Bradford Scott Borgstrom.
Do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Brad, I see on your submission you've got 2 roll numbers and 1 brief.
That's correct. We did submit 2 briefs for the files, but it's within the same building. I don't know why the department has it as 2 separate roll numbers, but we're treating it as a single entity. It's a hydro property. It's owner occupied. It's all occupied by one party, so I'm not quite sure why it's split out.
So do you want to hear them both at once?
I think that makes sense.
Okay, well, we'll start with the first one.
Okay.
And then you can present the second one. And then we'll let Brad present his. Okay. That work? Everybody agree to that?
Thank you, yes.
You may proceed.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Nice to be back. So Board of Revision file number 19-5472. Roll year is 2020. Address is 1840 Chevrier Boulevard. And the business assessment ID on this building is 623. The total annual rental value is $77,940. Total area of the premise is 5,460 square feet. We're utilizing an overall ARV per square feet of $14.27. So underneath that, we have the breakdown on how we got that figure. So there's the base ARV of $64,537. And then the occupancy costs of $13,377 for a total value of $77,940. Below that, I have my rent comparables, and you could see that 3 of them are very close to the size of the subject, and those 3 comparables range in net rents from $11.75 to $14.27. Then you have the smaller comparable there, up to 2,600 square feet approximately, and that has a rent of $13 net. So the next property is Border Vision file number 19-5473. Also roll year is 2020, address 1840 Chevrolet Boulevard. Business assessment ID on this one is 42592. The total ARV for this one is $179,100. The total area of the premise is 10,840 square feet. We're utilizing an overall ARV of $16.52 per square feet. Underneath that, we have the breakdown. Base ARV of $152,519. Occupancy costs of $26,558 for total ARV of $179,100. Underneath that, I have my comps. So you can see all the comps are pretty much within the range of the subject area. The rents range from approximately $12 to approximately $17 per square feet. On both of those briefs, you get on the following pages, you'll see the map of the property. And so on the first brief, on the very last page, page 3 of 3, so you see that building there. Part of that building is in that premise ID, or business ID, 623. So it's not the whole building, it's just part of that building. I believe this was done at one time because there were some grants issued or something. So I think the city broke it out into different IDs. On the second brief, if you look at the the second last page, you see the building there. There's a tall building, and then beside it is the office building. So that's the business ID 42592, and that's the office space in there. And then on the last page is the field form with the drawing of that office, and you can see it's 10,840 square feet. And I'll be open to questions. So we're actually asking for both these ARVs to be confirmed by the board.
Thank you. Brad?
Thank you. Just one moment. So on June 23rd, I forwarded you an email asking you to identify where these premises were within this larger role, correct?
Correct.
And you did not respond, right?
I did not respond. I was going to respond, and then I had other hearings, and then I was off, so I didn't respond. But I see you have the right ones in your briefs there.
So this property, in terms of its realty role, is significantly larger than just these premise IDs, correct?
Yeah.
And so when we're looking at the various allocations, these are parts of buildings only, or parts, individual buildings on the site, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, the 5,460 square foot area is part of the building that's closest to Chevrier, correct?
Yes.
We look at your page 2.
Yeah, page 3 would have the building. Yeah.
Of which
Right.
three?
And so part of that is an office structure and the balance of the building is industrial, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you have this for realty assessment purposes classed as an OFB, right?
Yes.
And similarly with the other space as an OFB as well, right?
Yes.
So the overall, if you look at the realty workup, the city shows it as a 1967 effective year built, right? Both rolls?
Which building are you talking
Both
about?
rolls.
What was the year you said, sir?
1967. In developing the model rent, the city applied OFB with a 1967 effective year build, correct?
Not for both of them.
Pardon me?
No, the second building was, the building permit was issued in 2008 and 2009, and the occupancy permit was issued in 2012.
So let me ask you the question again. In developing the model rent for these office spaces, the city applied a 1967
So which,
over both of them.
no, not for both of them.
Okay. And I will take the board through something to contradict the assessor statement in a moment. The as I said, or as I asked you earlier, the city has assessed both of these as an OFB, correct?
Yes.
What defines an OFB? That would be a Class B office building?
It's an office standard quality of
Yeah, and
that.
typically those are multi-story in downtown, right?
No, could be anywhere.
Anywhere. Typically outside of the downtown area, this would be an OFS.
That's what it is here.
And you're suggesting that the city did not do it on an OFB basis?
I didn't say that. I said that you said it was effective year 1976 for both buildings.
67?
So the first building is most likely 67. The other building was built in 2008 according to the building permit, and the occupancy permit was given in 2012.
But again, the city developed its model rent for realty assessment purposes, which this is based on as an OFB, correct?
I think he's answered the question.
Okay. Not quite sure I heard that, but okay. Now, so if 1967, that's for rule number 623, correct?
623, yes.
Yes. And if we look at your page 1, these are all similar ages, are they?
They're similar in size and quality, and that's why they're chosen as comparables.
I understand. So the question was,
I just have to interject here. Which roll number are we looking at?
623 to begin with. So as we look at them, and I appreciate your comments about similar in size, but are they similar in age?
I'm sorry, I don't have that info from me.
Okay. Are they office spaces or are they combination office and industrial spaces like the subject?
It would be like the subject.
You think 1175 is an industrial use?
It would be like the subject. That's how they're classified in our system. So that's why the comparables come up like that.
So let me back you up for a minute. You've classified this as an office. My question related to whether your comparables were a combination of office and industrial use, as when you look at the larger building, rather than just the small premise area, this building that it's within, roll number 623, is a combination of office at the front and industrial at the rear, correct?
Mr. Borgstrom, we're assessing the office section of the front of that building. And these are all the same type of classifications utilized for the same comparables here. So whether it has industrial behind it or not, I'm not sure, but the section in front of it is office for the subject, and these are often the same type of classifications for the comparables. Does that answer your question?
It does not. And so let's go through them one at a time. So 1479 Buffalo Place.
I don't have the specifics of these buildings in front of me. I have.
If he doesn't have the specifics, there's no point in going through.
And that's fine. As long as he's confirmed that, then we're good. Those are, oh, sorry. So let's go on to the next one at roll number 33815. Now, as we look at this, it's a combination of office space. This building, again, is a combination of office space and industrial, correct?
Correct.
And your rental comparables that you show on your page 1, 1250 Waverly Street, that's a medical building, correct?
Mr. Borgstrom, I don't have the specifics of the
Okay.
comparables.
Well, I can tell you that I have worked that the owner of that property is a client. I certainly worked it for a number of assessment cycles, including for 2020 and 2018. That is an office building, medical office building. Were you not aware of that?
I think he said he didn't have information on the comparables.
Fair enough. 850 Pembina Highway is on the east side of Pembina Highway near Stafford, correct?
It's 850 Pembina Highway, Mr.
You don't know where it is?
It's 850 Pembina Highway. I don't know which side of it.
Okay. 895 Waverly, do you know where that's located?
I don't have
Well,
specifics,
I
Mr.
think-
Borgstrom. I don't know how you're going to ask me all the comparables. I don't have specifics in front of me.
I think he's telling you that.
Okay, and so if I understand his answer correctly, he doesn't have any details to provide us in answer to our questions,
Yeah,
yes?
no, I was looking for comparables. I did, okay?
Okay. As you're looking for rental comparables, isn't location, similarity in use, and
Yes.
finish, would
Would
not that be two characteristics that you'd look for?
When we're looking for comparables, we look for similar in age, we look for a similar market region, we look for the same type of classification.
$12.50 Waverly Street is an OFM, is it not?
I think he's answered the question. He doesn't have information on.
Doesn't have it in front of him. Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Brenda, any questions?
I also can you just go back to tell me why these are splits? Because I didn't quite
I
understand.
think at one time there was grants given to Hydro or something by the city.
Okay.
So when they put these buildings up, there's just been different business IDs put on these buildings. And there is, if you look at the complex on the second page of my first brief,
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of buildings there, and a lot of them have different assessment IDs.
Okay. So
Yeah.
this piece, the first one on the docket is an office.
It's
And the second one on the top.
actually, it's office. Like if you look at
Yeah.
the map, so where the red dot is, it's that whole building. So just the front part of that building
Okay,
is
yes.
the office.
And the second part of the
The
second row.
building is this one here, and that's the office space.
That's the office
Yeah,
spaces. So we're looking at two offices within the same complex.
correct.
Okay. That helps me. And you've stated in your evidence that these are, your comparables are also similarly offices
Correct. Yes.
of the same age.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what the same age, but they're comparable. So average quality. The subject is average quality, so these would be average quality.
Okay, so you're really then looking at
The quality of the
and the
premise.
size
Right.
and area,
And
not so
the
much
classification.
age, not so much age.
The quality kind of comes into the effective age.
It brings in the age. Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
I'll just mention that these properties have not been appealed at the realty hearings over the last 2 years, 2 cycles, I believe. Is what? Yeah, no 2020 realty appeal for either of them.
So on the first one, 623, I'm looking at the aerial photo that shows the whole hydro property.
Right,
There's a building with the red dot on
right,
it.
yes.
There appears to be some demising between a part on the north side, small part. That is what we're looking at.
So here's a full second of the building.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's right here.
It's that part, and it's not the bulk of the building.
No,
You're
not
saying
the-
that.
no.
The bulk of the building, though, is not our second application.
No,
Our second application is a completely different building.
correct.
Is there business assessment on the remainder of that first building?
Yes, there is.
And we're not dealing with that today.
There is no appeal on it that I'm aware of.
I see. And you're a little hazy, I take it, on why the building has been separated into two.
Yeah, I read in the notes, there's something about grants on one of the buildings, so I'm assuming that the city has just separated which was granted and which wasn't at one time. But this is an older complex, so
I actually I wonder if it was part of the Winnipeg Hydro at one point.
Is there some form of grant still paid
I
relative to
couldn't.
this? Who takes care of the actual administration of combining rules and that sort of thing? Because personally, I find it confusing to put a value on a part of a building when there's an associated
this
part.
way since the building's been there.
Yeah, I realize that.
So, but
Given our questions, do you go back and say, why is it this way?
I
Should it be
actually
fixed?
just posed this question when I was looking for.
Okay.
So,
Good.
because
See,
it makes our job a lot harder too.
Yes,
So,
I can imagine.
I would like it to all be under one.
Right. Okay, so then the second application that we're looking at,
Yes.
is that other building to the east, or where is that
Yeah,
building?
so if you look on the map, it's this
It's
building.
that one there, okay, with a very tall portion
Yes, there's
and then a smaller portion.
correct. So
and
the
it's the
smaller portion is the office, the other side is a high voltage testing facility.
And again, it's not the high voltage testing facility part that is
The
subject to this application.
The next appeal will be on that
Aha,
one. There you go.
whew, all right. I think I've got it.
So yeah, here's the picture.
Yes,
So
so it's
the
that
office
office
and then-
part. Okay. And although you don't have the specifics about your comparables, you say that you did choose ones that are similar usage,
Correct.
location-ish,
Yes.
age.
Age comes into like quality, so effective age. So
Yeah. Okay, that's all my questions.
Thank you. Maybe I can enlighten the issue with why there's roll numbers. If I go to your brief that we're looking at now, which is the second one, the owner is listed as the Manitoba Hydroelectric Board. This is roll number 42592. If I go to the other one, 623, it's listed as Manitoba Hydro. Are they two different entities?
I couldn't tell you about them. I'm not sure if that's why they were separated like that.
But that's the way they're shown in the
That's the
roll.
way they're shown here on. Yes.
Okay, thank you. That was all my questions. Brad, you may proceed.
If I might, just as a clarification, I believe, and the assessor is certainly free to correct me if my understanding is wrong, but where you show owners, that's actually the occupant of that space, the business owner, correct?
No, it's owners.
So we have a single realty roll number. Are you suggesting that there are two owners for it?
It's confusing. Yeah. I believe it's all Manitoba Hydro. I don't know, Manitoba Hydro Electric Board is still there. I don't know if the system hasn't updated the owner. So I couldn't tell you.
So it's a distinction with no difference.
So, but since this has come under appeal, I'm looking into it, and I have.
So let me ask you again, under the header on your page 1 for roll number 623, where it says owner in Manitoba Hydro, is that what the city has recorded as the occupant of this premise, or is that what the city has recorded as the owner of the realty roll?
Owner
Of the realty roll?
of the premise.
Of the premise, okay. And so when we look at the next one, roll number 42592, and it shows the Manitoba Hydroelectric Board, that's the occupant of the premise, correct?
It's the owner of the premise.
Okay, so when we're talking about business assessments, there are many properties which are leased. In this case, it's not. But when you show, if I might finish, when you show the owners in that area, then that's actually the occupant, even where it's, that's the occupant of the premise, the owner of the business, but not the owner of the real estate, right?
Correct.
Okay, so it's the premise occupant.
It's the way the business IDs work is when we have a company move into a premise, we assign them a business ID now. So if they're located throughout the city in different areas, we assign them a different business ID for each one. If they're located in the same realty roll number, we assign them the same business ID. And that's why this one is confusing, because this one should all be under one business ID because it's all under one roll number.
You'll agree that Manitoba Hydro owns the entire realty roll.
I would say so, yes.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, I'm good.
He's testified that he's going to look into it.
Yeah, and so I'm going to guess it's my turn to go here. So we'll start on page 11 of our brief for rolls 623 and 42592. This is actually a printout from the city's website for the realty roll, and you'll see there a breakdown of the different buildings, various ages, wall heights, etc. So as we take a look at page 15, you'll see there the breakdown for the calculation of the realty assessment. And you'll see there that I've highlighted in yellow, and there's a little red arrow that I've added with the breakdown of the building areas to come up with the total of 16,300 square feet. You'll recall I asked the assessor if he knew about this, but I wasn't quite sure what his response was. In any event, this shows that this is an OFB for the city's realty assessment purposes. It shows the total building area of the two rolls at 16,300. And you can see there that that's how they calculated on the basis of a single office. On page 16, you'll see a further breakdown of the building areas. None of the building areas break down exactly to either 5460 square feet or 16,300 square feet, and that's because they are part of a larger building. Each of these office areas is part of a larger building area. So what's happened here is that the city has assessed the office areas separately and the warehouse areas separately. So what they've in effect done, and we'll get to that one in the next property on this docket, they've assessed an industrial area without any office space effectively using this methodology. So they've separated out the two office areas, and in looking forward, as we get to the next one, you'll see that there is no office area left on the industrial business roll that the city has assessed. So we took a look at a number of rental comparables. I can tell you that this property, let me just back up for a minute. I can tell you that this property was inspected a couple of years ago by Mr. Slaughter from our office. If you look on page 9, you'll see some pictures of the office area in there. Typical cubicle space, nothing remarkable. You'll see a training room in there as well. Interior cubicles, exterior office finish, like separate individual office buildings. So we took a look at a number of offices in the Fort Garry area, not up on Pembina Highway, but actually within close proximity to the subject property. We show those on page 6. And you will see there numbers 6 to 12. Those are all within 1150 Waverly Street, which is in close proximity to the subject. You'll see there that that is a combination, well, you won't see it there, but this is a combination warehouse space, office space. There's also a restaurant in there, a gymnasium. There's a few other developments. I can tell you that each of these spaces are solely office. There's no combination there. These are standalone rents for office space within these areas. Similarly with 1420 Clarence and for 1455 Waverly Street. if you accept the premise of economies of scale, then certainly larger areas like the subject areas would attract a lower rent. We've taken a look at this. I've suggested, based on all of this, $9 a square foot overall to the two rolls. There is no disagreement here with respect to the occupancy costs or the areas that they've been applied to. And I show a breakdown of all of that on our page 7. And you can see there at the top of the yellow section, each of these roll numbers has been separated out by their areas. You can see the $9 net rent applied to them. You can see the occupancy costs as applied, and again, no disagreement. And our requested reduction is shown under the rounded the rounded row, also highlighted in yellow. So for the smaller building facing Chevrier, we're looking for $62,520, and for the larger office area, we're looking for $124,140 rounded. And I am open for questions.
Here.
Yeah, page 6, your comparables.
Yes.
Comparable 6 to 12, they seem to be like one building. They're all built in 1974 or effective age.
Well, as with the other ones, right? And perhaps I didn't explain it properly. This is a multi-tenanted building, and those 6 to 12 are in 1150 Waverly. And I have personally verified that all of these spaces are office finish within that complex. There's also a restaurant in there, a gymnasium, a laser tag facility. There's some industrial space, but those are all rented separately. These are actually all office spaces.
So you're using 1150 Waverly. So I'm wondering why you would have left out the comparable I picked at 1150 Waverly, which is a recent, if you look at the lease, it's current in relation to the reference date. I don't see that one on here. Is there a reason?
No, hang on. Let me pull up yours.
Did you say 1150 or 1250?
1150 Waverly.
1150.
Okay, so that one is 5138 square feet. Let me look. So 5138 square feet. That one is leased to Platinum Books with a lease starting November of 2013. And I think that that's a combination. I didn't have a certainty that it was 100% office. I think there's likely industrial space in there as well, storage for shipping of the books. I don't believe it's a bookstore. And if it is a bookstore, it would therefore be retail, not office.
Have you inspected that premise?
I took a close look at the rent roll, the December 31st, 2017 rent roll for the property, and it shows as Platinum Books.
So you haven't inspected?
That particular premise, I have not.
Your comparables 1 to 5, that's 1420 Clarence to 1455 Waverly there. The size of that of those areas, they're approximately half or less than the subject.
Yes, and as I indicated, if you accept the premise for the theories of economies of scale, then certainly larger spaces would rent for less per square foot. But I can tell you that these are all office spaces.
So you're putting both your briefs in this one brief, so you're utilizing all these comparables So which is your best comparable for the first building then? Or the
I
first-
never look at any single one rental comparable. You look at what the market is telling you, you interpolate, and you make a decision based on your best judgment and experience.
Okay, can you give me 3 comparables or 4 comparables that are comparable to the first property, 623?
Well, all of our rental comparables are shown here.
So most of them are less than half. They're nowhere near the second building. And then the rest of the 6 or 60 are from one building. So you basically got 3 buildings with different sizes, not comparable to our subjects. Is that correct?
Again, size is not the only factor that you would consider in looking at this.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Lynn?
I do have a question. We heard earlier that the second building, so that's what I'm focusing on, the second building right now, was built in 2008-9 with an occupancy of 2012. You said you had some information about that. Can you?
Well, yeah, and what I was alluding to there was that the city has now assessed that office space separately from the industrial space that we're going to be looking at on the next property on this docket. So that means that the city has now assessed whatever industrial area is there, but it has effectively assessed it, or should have assessed it, let me say more correctly, should have assessed it as if it did not have office space, which has been separately assessed.
Okay.
And again, and I appreciate now that this building is a little different from the first one. But again, I asked this assessor on June 23rd to identify where within this large property these particular premises were located. And I can tell you, and it's within our brief, on June 24th at 8:06 in the morning, he said, "Good morning, Brad. I will get back to you later today after my hearing. Thanks." And then there's been radio silence since then.
I think he's already said that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I think that issue has been answered. He said he didn't have time to get back.
It's your appeal. You're appealing his buildings. You don't know where they are.
Are you asking a question?
Yes.
The assessment department, in response to a request for information, should properly respond to it with detail on appeal, and
I don't think
you didn't. Yeah, so.
Okay, move on.
yeah, I do have a follow-up question.
Thank you.
Regardless of all this discussion, we are where we are. So then, having said that, with an occupancy of 2012, it's a significantly newer building on the second.
I would agree with that. And having considered all of that, I would then.
Let her finish her question.
Your comparables don't reflect a newer building. Are you suggesting that a 30-year-old or like the rents on a newer building would be considered with these comparables that you brought? Or I'm just trying to understand the second piece.
I agree with the suggestion contained within your question. Had Mr. Bas Mohammed actually responded to our inquiry, I would have adjusted our rental rate on this. And I think that a rental rate higher than what I've suggested there would be warranted. And certainly based on what I've looked at in terms of OFMs at 1,200 Waverly, 1,250 Waverly that I've worked in previous, it would be higher than $9. I don't think that 1407 is supportable in this industrial park in this location. As a 2-story building would be supportable. So yes, I would go higher than the $9 I'm suggesting, but I don't think it's 1407.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mark. 1420 Clarence is what building?
Bear with me while I pull it up. I've come to appreciate the speed of our internet connection at the office versus here at home, but it's open now. Okay. 1420 Clarence.
Yes.
One is occupied by the Home Builders Association. But I can also tell you that both of the rental comparables in 1420 Clarence came from city briefs, city appeal briefs, used on an appeal in support of rental rates. If you'd like, I can provide you with the details of those hearings.
What I'm wondering about is that building strictly an office building, or is there any industrial use?
In that location, I believe that as with 1150 Waverly, where there's a multitude of uses, restaurant, laser tag, etc., gym, this 1420 Clarence would also, as an entire property, it's a multi-tenanted property. Overall, the property will have a mix of uses, but these particular spaces are office spaces.
Yeah, but what I'm wondering is, in your picking this, have you demised the assessment like the city has? It's we're talking about a single building in the case of both of the applications, yet the city has divided them into two separate roll entries. Is this, although it might be a large property with multiple buildings and other uses that don't require buildings, I don't know, but does the building that you have chosen here with an area of 2325 in both cases, is that the full amount of that building?
It is not. It is a multiple tenant building.
Oh, okay.
But these two spaces are in fact office space.
Okay, so it's just like 1150, which is
yes.
Okay. Just so I know where 1150 is, you mentioned a gym. The name of the gym is?
Okay. 1150 or 1100. It might well have been 1100 that I was thinking of, which is adjacent. The spaces that we're showing in here. Sorry. Yep. So my apologies. When I said 1150, I think what I meant to say was 1100. So let me pull that up for you.
Am I correct in thinking that 1150 and 1100 are both similar buildings? They haven't had separate addresses, but they were built at the same time.
Roughly the same time, yeah. I think 1100 used to be, I misspoke. My dad used to work in the building when he was with Hydro, and they had leased out a bunch of the space, but that's decades ago. So let me just pull it up here.
Well, that's when I worked with those people too, so that's why I'm trying to figure out exactly.
Yeah, so let me pull this up here. 2017.
Sort of a map. I just want to be sure I know what these places are.
Okay, so yeah, I believe that you're correct in that they are each beside each other, and we're gonna.
Are you gonna go with that? Or
Well, I'm just pulling it up here so I can actually look at it. You asked about the gym. Yeah, This is within the Fort Garry Business Center at 1100. And it is called Undefeated CrossFit is the name of the gym in that space.
Okay.
It's not the rental comparable I've used here, but
when there is offices associated with an industrial space, how frequently, in your experience, does the office portion get rented out by someone who is not involved in the industrial space?
that doesn't happen, which is why all of our rental comparables are exclusively office space for the areas. There is no combination of office and industrial as part of that unit. It is only office. So, for example, sometimes you'll walk into, for example, a flex warehouse. There will be office at the front, warehouse at the back. That's not the case with any of these. These are all office space.
But you're saying that if you took, say, that first building, the 623 application there, if you took that building as your case in point, you would never find that person A used the industrial space and person B used the office space?
Yeah, I would never say never, but it would be exceedingly rare. I can't think of any example off the top of my head where that has happened.
In other words, if you want the industrial space, you got to take the office. If you want the office, you got to take the industrial space.
That's generally how the market would work, yeah.
That's not the same as with your comparables. No.
That's exactly the same as with my comparables. All of the comparables that we've shown here, one example we have, these are all multi-tenanted properties. You have Unit A, that's 100% office, and you have Unit B, which is maybe 50% of one, 50% of the other, rented to a different tenant, and you have another unit that might be fully industrial. In this particular case, certainly unit 6 to 12, not our rental comparables, but within that property are areas that are fully restaurant or fully gymnasium or fully a laser tag facility, but there is no industrial property, there is no industrial space associated with that tenant.
So it is different than the subject property. Subject property is office with associated industrial.
Yeah.
Your comparables are strictly office. So my question was, if you're saying that it's not likely to happen that somebody would rent the office part without renting the industrial, you've got to take the two of them together. Does that have an implication for the rent on the office portion?
I would agree with that premise. Typically what you're going to find is a person renting an industrial space with an office component to it. They're going to look at an overall rent. They're not really interested in a higher rent on one and a lower rent on the other. They're going to be looking at an overall rent.
So why have we done it this way then?
Because the city has separately assessed the office component for business assessment purposes. Okay. The only thing we're looking at here on appeal is the office space.
All right. That's all my questions.
Thank you. So just to confirm, comparison 6 to 12 is 1100 Waverly?
Yes, I apologize for that, yeah.
That was my only questions.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We'll proceed to the last of 1840 Chevrolet. And you may proceed.
Roll number 19-5474, roll year 2020, again, address 1840 Chevrolet Boulevard. The business assessment ID is 42782. Business name is Manitoba Hydro, and the owners are listed as the Manitoba Hydroelectric Board. Total ARV for the year is 295,860. The area of the premise is 25,242 square feet, We're utilizing an overall ARV per square feet of $11.72. Down at the bottom is the breakdown. So we're using a base ARV of $9.27 per square foot, which works out to a base ARV of $233,993. Occupancy costs total $61,843, and that gives us their total ARV of $295,860. Again, below are all my comparables. They range in area from 15,000 square feet to approximately 34,500 square feet. And there's the rents that range from approximately $9.50 to $10.60. Now, this, if you turn to page, the second last page, there's the building again, but the last page shows you the interior of the warehouse there. So it's a high voltage testing facility. I believe the walls are 80 feet, between 60 and 80 feet. So finding comparables for this is it's pretty hard. So what I've done is I've used comparables with the larger square footage areas, and that's where I've got my comparables from, and similar age. And yeah, so we're asking for confirmation of our ARV value of 295,860, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you. Brad?
Thank you. I have just actually a couple of questions. These, in looking at your occupancy costs, the city has or shows this area as fully air conditioned. Have you verified that?
No, I haven't verified it.
Do you know where that conclusion came from?
It's been like that since the business has been in effect, so I'm assuming it came in from the permits.
Okay, so let's take a look at your page 3. And I appreciate that certainly the office space is going to be air conditioned, but if we look at the larger building, there's no rooftop HVAC on there, is there?
No, but I'm not sure if it's a rooftop or not, or if it's on the side.
Okay, so there's certainly nothing visible on the side that you're showing here, correct?
It's not in the picture, no.
Okay, and as we look at your picture on page 2, and again, this is the structure that is in the upper right-hand corner of the site, right?
Yes, it's.
And there doesn't appear to be any HVAC shown in that picture either, right?
Which picture are you talking about? The overhead view of the whole complex?
On page 2.
Yeah, I can't see that closely.
Okay, so looking at that picture there, and the picture you show in your page 3. Now, if we go to your page 4, there doesn't, and I realize that it's with the ceiling height this high, it's going to be difficult to see, but there doesn't appear, at least of what we can see there, any ductwork in there, right?
Maybe I can ask, have you verified with Hydro to see if there is any air conditioning in there?
Well, in our brief, I'm going to be going by Mr. Slaughter's inspection notes. So my question for you, and I'm just going to remind you actually that the burden of proof in these appeal hearings is on the city. And so let me again ask you, there doesn't appear to be any ductwork on your page 4, right?
Mr. Slaughter inspected it, you say. I'm just wondering why he wouldn't have updated us and have somebody go out there and inspect it then.
So Reef, it should be a yes or no answer. He's asked you a direct question.
Sorry, can you repeat it?
Okay, so on your page 4, as we look at the sort of limited area that we can see of the sort of roof or interior high point, doesn't appear to be any ductwork, does there?
I don't see it in that picture, but.
Yeah. And as we look at page 5 of 5, this is a sketch of the building. This is from the city's field sheets on the property, correct?
Correct.
You have those with you?
They're not my evidence.
Do you have those with you?
No, they're at the office.
Okay. But certainly on this page, there is no notation of air-conditioned areas, correct?
You wouldn't put that on this diagram.
Okay. And those are my questions. Thank you.
I have no questions at this point.
Mark? Are there any comparable buildings in
No,
Winnipeg, 80 foot?
80 foot, not that I'm aware of. I mean, I don't know the Boeing, but that's on the other side.
You'll have to speak up, so it's recorded.
Yeah,
There is a building on Waverly, I believe it is a server building, Bell MTS server building, fairly tall. Is that a comparable building?
I'm not familiar with that one. I don't know if it's also zoned industrial or not. If it was, it would have come up in my comparable search.
Okay. That's all my question.
And I have no questions.
Okay.
You can proceed.
Thank you. And so now that we know what and where this building premise is, the $9.27 for a building of this age, in my world, the 80-foot wall height is going to be a super adequacy, a limited market sort of, or in terms of rentals at least, that the market would not recognize that excess of wall height. Having said that, for newer properties of this vintage, I'm not going to disagree with $9.27 a square foot. I've quickly checked some rental comps on newer properties on Wilkes, and they're in that $9 range. So we're not going to, or let me amend my submission here and suggest that the $9.27 a square foot is okay. However, based on my questions of the assessor as well as Mr. Slaughter's inspection, he, and I asked him very particularly about this, he did not recall this space as being air conditioned. And so our request now will be to simply have the air conditioning removed. And so we're looking for a reduction in this assessment of $25,242 to reflect the removal of that air conditioned space. So we will leave the base rent as it is, the balance of the occupancy costs as they are, and simply a removal of the air conditioned areas.
Thank you. Ruth?
So, so the final ARV you're asking for is,
$270. Let me round it off. $618, but let me round it off. So 270, I think 610 if I've calculated this right.
I get 287, 277.
So 2339, oops. 993 plus 6184. 3 minus 2 divided by. I keep getting an odd number, and that shouldn't be happening. Bear with me. So the occupancy costs. Oh, okay. Hang on. There we go.
So basically, I just subtracted
Yeah. Yeah, I found out my.
I multiplied 34 cents times the area and
Yeah,
subtracted
61.43.
ARV to work out to 28 or 287,277 and 72
I get
cents.
23393.
How can you take 25,242 off?
Right. No, times it by 34 cents and then subtract that value because he wants to get rid of the air conditioning.
270.
But your amount, that's the area, I'm sorry. I'm misreading it.
Hmm.
I'm just taking the area off. He's correct. It's 0.34 off 25,242. You take that off of 295,860.
I did it again. I'll take your calculation for it. So 34 cents times 25,242. We're going to remove that from the occupancy cost, add back in the base ARV, and then round it.
287,277 and 72 cents. I think that
But-
needs to be,
But we're going to round that, right?
I
So
think
two,
divisible by 12 also. So
yeah. So 270. What was your figure?
287,277 and 72 cents.
Okay.
And just to add to this,
287,280 rounded, right?
287,277.
Yeah, but it's never going to be an odd number like that for business assessment.
I'm saying that number has to be, you got to work out a number that's divisible by 12.
And so that's 287,280.
Yeah.
so where are we?
So 287,280.
Would be our request.
Is your request?
Yes.
Lynn, do you have any questions?
No.
Mark?
You said that when you asked Mr. Slaughter, correct me if I misheard, Mr. Slaughter said he did not recall there being air conditioning.
In
Right.
any of the industrial areas.
So although he did not recall upon being questioning, did he actually look for and record whether or not there was air conditioning?
Well, typically, where there is something unusual like that, there would have been a notation made in our files, and there is no such notation.
Either way.
I also, and beyond that, I've also taken a look at the Google Earth views of it. I can't see any HVAC on the industrial section. There is on the office, but not on the industrial section.
Okay, thank you.
I've also reached out to Manitoba Hydro, but I have not received a reply from them yet.
Okay.
So I just have one question. If we go to page 5 of the assessor's brief, the schematic there, on the left side is workshops. Now, is it conceivable if these are enclosed workshops that it's air conditioned? I understand the high voltage tower being not air conditioned, but the workshops.
And I can't, I don't know the answer to that. Other than to say workshops would have been considered industrial, not office. And there was no notation of HVAC in there.
Because if I go to page 9 of your brief, it shows what I assume is the workshops. And
Well, again, these are some of the pictures from our inspection. Let me just open it up here. And I can't tell you. Yeah, and I can't tell you if that is actually within this building. I took some of the industrial pictures and put them in here because, and as I indicated, that's one of the reasons why I asked where this particular premise was on this within this larger realty role. In looking at certainly the top picture, I don't think the top picture is indicative of the subject premise building. And the bottom picture and the picture on page 10 at the top certainly look like storage to me, parts storage. And there's no ducting in there, and there's certainly no HVAC within this area.
No, it would seem to me to be odd.
Yeah.
Facility that those areas weren't air conditioned, given the fact there's closed doors.
Well, I can tell you that I've inspected another hydro property in that area that actually it doesn't have HVAC at all, no heat. That has hydro, but no heat, no bathroom, because they have a bit of a campus in that area, and so they. It wouldn't surprise me if there was not HVAC in there. They don't air condition warehouse space unnecessarily. It's really rare to find air conditioned warehouse space. The one example that keeps coming back to mind is the one that Mr. Cohen built. Used to be the Red Apple Distribution Center on Sony Place at 1370. Really unusual at the time. He put air conditioning in his warehouse, the whole warehouse, but that was really unusual. Generally speaking, you don't find that in industrial areas.
Okay, I think Lynn has another question.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at your pictures on page 15 and 14. Bottom one on page 14.
Yeah.
Is that in the ceiling with the cover on it, sort of top left?
Yeah, there's something hanging there, but there is clearly no ductwork coming into it. And so I don't know what else to say about that. But as you look at, and the assessor has a very clear picture on his, when you look at the top, yeah, I'm just looking here. If you look at the top of page 3.
Yeah, the top of the building.
Yeah, when there's HVAC in place, you would see much larger mechanical systems up there than what you see there.
Okay, thanks.
And I have no further questions, so that concludes this property. We need a break. Take a break and return at 10:20. Did you get
Thank
that?
you.
10:20.
10:20. Thank you.
Hi, Brad. Are you back?
I am. I just had to unmute.
Oh, okay. So we'll proceed to the next property on the docket, which is 60 Burnett Avenue. Proceed.
Okay, order revision file number 19-5331, roll year 2020, address is 60 Burnett Avenue, business assessment ID is 1562, and the owner of that business is Classen Manufacturing Limited. Total ARV we're assessing is $171,000. Total area of the premises is 19,144 square feet, which works out to an overall ARV of $8.93 per square feet. Underneath that is the calculation. So again, we're using 19,144 square feet times by our base ARV of $6.81. It works out to 130,371 for the base ARV. You'll notice that not the entire premises is air conditioned. We're saying there's about 752 square feet of air conditioning in the premise. So therefore, total occupancy costs work out to $40,650. That works out to an annual ARV of $171,000. Underneath that is my comparables. You'll notice all the leases are current in relation to the reference date, and the rents range from $6.50 to $7.38. If you turn to page 3, you'll see there was a realty appeal on this, and the board on the following page, the board's decision was based on the assessor's net operating income and just an adjustment in the overall cap rate. So they did utilize our rent per square feet. And on the very last 2 pages, there's a copy of our brief, the first page, and then our workup on the last page. And you'll see that we're using $6.81, which the board used in their decision. Yeah, so we're asking for a confirmation of our ARV value of $171,000, and I have a bunch of questions.
Thank you. Brad?
I do have a few. So you've indicated that this property was heard in respect of the 2020 realty assessment, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes. And did you have a chance to review the photos of the physical condition of this premise?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
I apologize. Okay. Did you have a chance to review the photographs from that hearing submitted on behalf of the owner with respect to the physical condition of the premise?
No, but I did have a chance to look through your brief just now.
Do you know what the wall height is within the real estate of the subject premise?
Yes. It ranges from 17 feet to 21 feet.
21 feet. Would it be fair to say that all but 4264 square feet have a 17-foot wall height?
Looking at your pictures, there's 2 buildings that.
Well, I'm not asking you to look at my brief. I'm asking you about the city's records.
Sorry, what are you asking?
I'm asking from the city's records.
Yes.
4264 square feet appear to be 21-foot wall height, but the balance of the property that approaches 20,000 square feet in total size
I'll take your word.
is 17 foot, correct?
I'll take your word for it.
Okay. Do you know the wall heights of your comparables?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Would it be?
Again, let me just clarify how we search for comparables. When we search for comparables, we put in our parameters and it spits out the comparables that are comparable. And then we have to go through those comparables and see which ones fit this subject property.
And that's fair enough. So as you went through them,
one of the parameters that we.
I think the board understands that.
Yeah. So as you went through them, did you make a note or take notice of the wall height of these properties?
I don't have the specifics on these comparables.
Okay. But that's not one of the parameters that you search by, is it?
Sorry?
Is wall height one of the parameters you searched by?
We get a spec. Yes, we have wall heights in our comparable.
Now, in terms of location, you have one sort of in the area of the subject property, and the other ones you have sort of spread out over the city. You have a couple in Inkster Industrial Park, got one out on Keewatin. Is that a yes?
What was the question? Sorry.
So your rental comparables are fairly spread out in terms of location. And in fact, you've only got one within the area of the subject property, correct?
The subject property has a bigger rentable premise. So
I'm not talking about the premise. I'm talking about the location.
I'll tell you where we got the comparables and why we looked outside the immediate area. It's because the subject property has a larger area to lease. So we have to look for larger properties. So if there's no properties located in the region, then we have to go outside the region.
Okay. So in terms of the rent that a property or a premise might attract, age would be one factor, correct?
Yes,
Wall height would certainly impact on the rent that might be achieved, correct?
correct,
Location would be another one, correct?
correct,
Physical condition would similarly be another factor that would impact on the rental rate achievable.
the quality of the premise would, yes,
Physical condition.
yes,
Okay. And again, you've had a chance not to look at the submission from the Board of Revision on the realty appeal, but you've looked at the pictures this morning. Did you make note of any structural deficiencies,
no,
issues with the property?
no, I'm assuming that's why the board raised our cap rate to 8.25 when they made their decision.
As you look at your page, and I apologize, it's not numbered, but if we look at the Board of Revision order, it doesn't make any notation of that, correct?
Notation of what, sir?
Physical condition.
The cap rate has been adjusted to $8.25, and cap rates are based on quality.
Right, and that could be age related, correct? Those are my questions.
Thank you. Lynn?
I don't have questions right now, but I might
That's fine.
need something to clarify later. Thanks.
Mark?
No questions.
I just have one question. Altus was the agent at the Board of Revision. Has this been appealed to the municipal board?
Not that I'm aware of. I would have made a note if it was.
Okay, thank you. That was all my questions. Okay, Brad, you're up.
Yeah, I'm just going to look up our information and just maybe confirm that. Bear with me for one moment. So I can confirm for the board that for the 2020 realty assessment, the board's decision in respect to the realty appeal was appealed to the municipal board.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure where the assessor got his information from, but I can tell you from our records it has been.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And
So I'm going to start with a review of the property's physical characteristics. Now, I've attached pictures at the rear of our submission from on October 29th, 2018 inspection, starting at page 9. These are not select pictures. These are just pictures showing the offices and the interior of the industrial area. In particular, I want to draw your attention as you go through the industrial areas of the low clear ceiling height. That's one of the factors that any tenant or potential lessor, lessee would take into account is what is the usable area within the property. If we take a look at page 15, you'll see there that there are some issues with respect to the concrete block and some shifting and separation. That's another issue. It allows air penetration from the exterior. You have high utility costs. And similarly on page 16, you'll see there's some roof leakage. You'll see there on 16 on the bottom picture, or as you look at it from the side, you can see there the roof joists, and you'll see there very clear water leakage at both the top and the bottom. So these are physical conditions which we say affect the rental rate. So we took a look at some rental comparables of the subject property. Again, this property was built in 3 sections, 1962, 1967, and 1975. The department, the city, has assigned an effective year built of 1967. We show the details of the different buildings on page 23 of our submission, the very last page. And you'll recall that I asked the assessor about this. So you have a total of 19,144 square feet of gross floor area. Of that, 4,264 square feet is 21-foot wall height. The balance is 17-foot wall height, which gives you a clear ceiling height between 18 inches and 2 feet and less than that. So in terms of clear ceiling, this is a what I would call a deficient physical property. In terms of its rentability, would be a limited rental market, not only in terms of the ability to rent it, but the rate that you would be able to achieve. We show on page 3 a little bit of a physical description, and you'll see the red dot there in the picture at the bottom of page 3. That's the actual location of this property. Single occupant, 1 premise for the entire realty role. You'll see there on page 4, buildings 1, 2, and 3 identified there for you, and you'll see a sort of a backwards view of it at the top and a view from Burnett Avenue at the bottom. Took a look at rental comparables, and again, this particular area is mostly owner-occupied spaces within this sort of area. So, as did the city, we had to go outside of the area as well. The one that I'm going to suggest is the closest in terms of sort of physical condition is going to be 903 Marion. But again, as I said before, I would never rely on a single rental comparable. We look at what the market is telling us, and that's what we base our views on. Based on these rental comparables, given the limitations in wall height, given the limitations in terms of its physical condition, we're suggesting that a rate of $5 per square foot would be appropriate in this case. And so we go through the calculations on page 7, utilizing $5 per square foot overall. That includes both the office and industrial components of the single occupant structure. There's no disagreement with respect to the occupancy costs and its calculation. So we're looking for a reduction to $136,380 based on all of that.
Thank you. Arif?
Yes. Could you tell us what the nature of the business is in that building?
Not off the top of my head. If we look at it, it's industrial in nature. If you look at the pictures.
Okay. On your page 6, you have comparables there. So you are not in the same neighborhood either when you're looking for comparables?
Well, I think he made that quite clear when he talked about it.
Your 903 Marion, comp number 2, the lease ended December 31st, 2015.
Right, and that's within the reference period that we're looking at.
Isn't the reference period 2020, so it would be 2018?
The reference date is April 1st of 2018, but you certainly look at a number of years leading up to that. The city has, we do. It's not unusual.
So you're saying that rents 2 years prior to the reference date is valid? So rents haven't gone up anywhere in 2 years?
Well, I can tell you that rents, generally speaking, can go up, they can go down, or they can remain the same. It depends on each individual property, depends on the desirability of any particular property. In this case, I have my opinion as of April 1st of 2018 is that a $5 per square foot rent is appropriate for this premise.
So page 18 is your comp number 2 there?
Page 18?
Yes.
That's correct.
What's the land area for that?
I don't have that record in front of me here.
What's the land area for the,
It has a, if you look on our page 6, it has a land to building ratio of 1 to 3.
so on page 1, you say it's 1.5 acres, 65,000 square feet of site area?
That's the subject property.
So, but you don't know what your comp number 2 is? So the subject.
Just to be clear, the land building ratio, and we show this on our page 6, the land to building ratio is 3.0 to 1. If you calculate 65,000 square feet, divide that by the 19,144 square feet, it's a little over 3 to 1.
Okay, sorry, I'm on page 6. Where do you show your land for the
So if we look at the chart at the top,
subject?
okay, so the subject property, if you go back and I think that you know how to do the calculation. If you take 65,310 square feet, divide that by 19,144, because there is no second story, that's plan area, you come up with a land to building area of 3.41 to 1.
Okay, and that's your best comp, you're saying?
Not okay, so let's
You did say
so stop for a minute. That is the calculation of the land to building area for the subject property, 3.41 to 1. Comparable number 2. I don't think I said was the best comparable. I think I indicated previously that I don't look at any one single rent. What does the market tell us? And you look at what is the subject property in terms of all of its physical characteristics, the land building ratio, wall height, physical condition, other things will enter into it as well. Based on all of that, I'm suggesting that $5 a square foot is the appropriate rent for business assessment purposes for this premise.
The subject is 19,000 square feet. Your comparables, besides that one comparable, all the other comparables are, I think, 5,000 square feet or more than the subject.
They have a range in size. There's no doubt about that.
Would you say with economies of scale that the rents per square foot would go down?
As one factor only, but again, there are other factors, and I've already listed them, some of them, that you need to consider as well.
So your comparable number 6, you can find the most recent lease for that?
That is the information we have within our records that came up on the search.
When did you look for these comparables?
These comparables? When I was preparing the brief is when the rental comparables were placed in here.
Well, the last week.
Excuse me, why is that relevant?
Because I want to know if these have been stepped up or not, the rent. So
Well, then ask that question, not when.
So where there is a step up in place, we show that, and we, as long as it's not post reference, we will show the rent as close as we can get to the reference date.
So were any of these stepped up?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Those are all the questions.
Thank you. Lynn?
No questions.
The physical condition issues that you pointed out, are those curable or incurable?
That's a good question. Concrete block gets a little fussy. It may be able to be repaired, but once a repair is undertaken for concrete block, it may recur. I've certainly seen that in masonry structures previously, depending on what is done to remediate the issue. It may recur or it may not, and I'm not sure in this particular premise if it's cost effective to do that. In any event, we need to consider its present physical condition as of the year of the assessment.
Do you have any estimate for the?
I do not. No. No. Not in terms of the cost to cure. What I was trying to determine is what would this premise rent for.
Okay. If you look at your page 1, the photo in front of the various buildings.
Yeah.
If we go from left to right, building 3 has what wall height?
So if we take a look at page 4, you'll see there at the top picture, the buildings are numbered.
Mm-hmm.
That corresponds
To my left to right.
Yeah.
Asking about building.
Sorry, I got a little pop-up message on my security message from my system. If we take a look at page 23, that corresponds to buildings 1, 2, and 3. So if we look at the numbers on the top of page 4, that corresponds with the numbers from the city's website on page 23.
Okay, so building 1 is the rightmost building on page 1, correct?
That's correct.
So this states that.
So, sorry, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to be clear, the top picture, we're looking at it from the rear of the site. If you're looking at it from the front of the site, as we did in the picture on page 1, you'd have to flip it around and look at the bottom picture.
I'm wrong. Building 3 on page 1 is the leftmost building. Building 1 is the rightmost building on page 1 in the photo.
In the photo, building 1 is the left. So on page 1, the part of the building that's on the right-hand side should coincide with the left hand of the building marked building 1 on page 4 at the top.
All right, so that's building 1. It actually has 2 different heights.
I would agree that they are different, yes.
Now, which one of those is 17 feet?
That's a good question. I think it's an overall height because the city, if you look at page 23, these are the city's records for those buildings. And I think it's not unusual. I think that they amalgamated 2 of them into one unit, if you will.
And you don't have your own measure? Or
We do not. We do not.
Then the next building, building number 2, is the highest one. It's got a slight pitch to its roof. The city record is 21 feet. Do you have a record for that building?
Not separately, no.
Okay, and then the last building, building number 3, is the one that juts out towards the street the most. That again is shown as 17 feet. Do you have a separate?
Not separately, no.
For that?
Yeah.
Do each of these buildings have a wall that fully separates the building from its neighbor?
Interior, I believe that's correct, but there will be obviously openings inside for the processes. And I think as you look in here, so one example of such an interior separation would be on page 12. And you can see there where they've opened it up, and you can see where it opens from one section to the next.
Okay. So there are some openings.
Yes.
Between them, but it's not like there is.
It's not all open span.
Oh, right. Okay, that's all my questions.
And I have one. Page 6. Towards the bottom, you're showing a base net rent of 183,000.
Yeah, that's a typo. Should be 95,720.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the calculations we show on page 7 are out of a spreadsheet, so that'll be the right number.
Okay, thank you. That was all my questions. That concludes that. Next one is 67 Archibald, and I believe you're requesting a confirmation.
That's correct. Yeah, I don't have client instruction on that one, so if we could confirm it under section 54.1, I think that'll probably be the end of it.
Okay, or if you just have to put it in record, the roll number and the ARV.
Okay, so Board of Revision, file number 19-5246, roll year is 2020, address is 67 Archibald. Business assessment ID is 2197. The owner of the business is Labels Unlimited Incorporated. Total annual rental value is 167,940. Total area of the premises is 22,088 square feet, and the overall ARV per square feet is $7.60.
Okay, we're gonna have to get some clarification here. You have a recommendation on this part.
I do, but I would like to withdraw that recommendation.
Okay, the board will make its decision during deliberation. Thank you.
Questions?
Do you have any questions?
I have questions.
Okay.
Why is it?
We did the recommendation was following through from what the, give me 1 second. So I guess there was a recommendation made at the board of hearing, or for the realty, at the realty, and that was based on the $5 per square foot.
Based on $5.
Per square foot for the base rate, yes.
Sorry, in the realty appeal,
Yes.
the rent, the assessor recommended the.
Yeah, so we have the base ARV plus the.
Well, I know, but I'm talking
yeah.
about the realty appeal. There's no base ARV in the realty appeal. Just in the realty appeal, what
Yeah,
rent?
so the base
was
was
used?
$5 per square, $5 per square.
$5.
Yeah, and then the occupancy works out to $7.
So then, do you have any more questions, Mark? I have one.
Yeah, just a second. In this case, we have a single business ID at 2197. We got 2 premises. What is the separation between these premises?
I believe one was there might have been a men's area.
Might have been, you're not sure.
I'm not sure. I was just following, I saw the realty, so I just followed it through.
Do mezzanines normally get a separate valuation
sometimes.
for the business
If
assessment?
it's different quality, yes.
Okay.
Because
And
one could be warehouse, one could be office.
but your comparables here,
My comparables are higher. I couldn't find low comparables, but whatever the deal was that the assessor at the time with the realty worked out with Mr. Workstrom or his colleagues was based on $5. I couldn't find any comparables less than $5.25. That's why I have those ones on there.
and the reported areas are substantially larger, except for, I guess, the first one.
Well, I was just, I added the 2 areas together and did overall.
And manufacturing goes on, like, in this building?
It's in the industrial section. I don't know if it's manufacturing.
Thank you. So just so I understand this, the department made a recommendation at the realty here.
Right.
To reduce the rent to $5 a square foot. Did they appeal? I assume they didn't appeal the realty.
I'm
decision.
hoping not. Yeah, otherwise, I don't know why the deal was made.
Well, then the question is, why would you retract your recommendation?
Well, I didn't check to see if there was a muni appeal or not.
Okay, that's my question.
Yeah, just for clarification, there would have been some notes made on the assessor's brief that was filed at the Board of Revision within our information. So within our file, there would be notes. We're working from home. I did not have the notes. And so that would be the reason for our seeking in this case of the confirmation.
We go with the,
So once I get back into the office, it may change.
And you would like that?
yeah, we're willing to go with this, if he's okay with that, but if his client is asking for confirmation, then I don't know if he's got authority or not. I don't know.
Well, leave it with us.
But perhaps we could get complete clarification. What number are you seeking?
It's on his.
In all fairness, I would go with the 157.
All right.
But like, if he's asking for confirmation, I don't know if he's got. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
The next one on the brief or on the docket is 1266 Bite.
I guess that means. Okay, Board of Revision file number 19-5684. Roll year is 2020. Address is 12665. Business assessment ID is 38927. The owner of the business is West Rock Gas Parade Inc. Total ARV is 295,500. Total area of premises is 45,675. Overall ARV is $6.47. And I see Mr. Borgstrom is asking for confirmation. And the realty decision also on page 3, confirming our realty assessment also. So we're asking for confirmation also on the ARV of 295,500.
Brad?
Yeah, the Board of Revision order I'm looking at here, just to be clear, dates back to February 4th, 2003.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In any event, I had requested information from our client and did not receive anything as of the time we filed our brief. So we are seeking again a 54-1 confirmation.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Reed?
No.
Lynn?
No questions.
What is the business? I see the name, but what goes on here?
I'm not sure what the business is. I haven't inspected the property myself.
No further questions.
And I have no questions. The next one is 1280 Inkster Boulevard, and if you can proceed.
Board of Revision file number 19-5448. Roll year is 2020. Address is 1280 Inkster Boulevard. Business assessment ID is 21075. The owner of the business is Industrial Rubber Supply Company Limited. We're assessing annual rental value of $194,520. The area of the premises is 24,939 square feet. The overall ARV is $7.80 per square feet. There you see our calculations. Our base ARV is $5.65. Total occupancy costs are $53,590, which gives you ARV of $194,520. There's our comparables at the bottom. At the Realty Board of Revision for Realty, the appeal was withdrawn because there was a 51 agreement signed by both parties, and that was based on $5 rental rate. I have on the last page the copy of the agreement and a workup of how that was based. So we are recommending that we follow through on the 51 agreement and reduce our base ARV from $5.65 to $5 per square feet. So this would result in a revised ARV of 178,260. And I think, yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Brad?
Yeah, well, I'm prepared to accept that. I had it calculated as slightly different. There was no actual workup on in our files, certainly not on the server, and I was trying to extrapolate the rent that Mr. Bedker used, but it looks like they lowered the rent and left the cap rate in place. So I'm happy to go with the assessor's recommendation.
Lynn, any questions?
No questions.
Mark? No. And I have no questions. Next one is 1511 Valor Road. And Arif, you can proceed.
Okay, Board of Revision file number 19-5279, roll year is 2020, address is 1511 Fowler Road. Business assessment ID is 52011. The owners of the business are Flint Equipment Rentals Limited. Total ARV is 117,600 is what the assessment is. Total area of all the premises is 11,304 square feet. The overall ARV that we're utilizing is $10.40. So there's the calculations below, and you can see that we're using a blended rate of $8.27. There's a limited air conditioning in the first premise, and there's no air conditioning in the second premise. If you work out the totals on there, we get the ARV of 117,600. I've done the calculations there for you, just below that. Under that is my rent comparables. You can see that they're all in the same general area. The leases are all current within the reference date. And the net rents range from $7.25 to $8.31, and the square footage ranges from 8,000 square feet to about 15,500. We're recommending also on this one, there was a 51 agreement signed, and we're asking just for a follow through for a blended rate of $7.84, which would bring a revised ARV of 112,740. And I think Mr. Borgstrom is asking pretty much the similar. We're just off by a couple $100, but
Yeah, I think the difference is just rounding.
Any questions, Brad?
I do not have any, thank you.
Lynn?
No questions.
Can I gather you're accepting the recommendation?
Yeah, I think that the difference between the difference between the two is very small, but I think it's just the methodology by which we round it.
Okay, thank you. The next one is 9 Otter Street. Let's bring it up. And Arif, you can proceed.
all right, Board of Revision file number 19-5566, roll year 2020, address 19 Otter Street, business assessment ID 39507. Owners are Galvanic Corrosion Technologies Incorporated. Total ARV, we're assessing at $110,100. Total area of all premises is $12,940. Overall ARV per square foot is $8.51. Underneath, you'll see our calculations. So we're using a base ARV of $6.40. And then total occupancy costs work out to $27,304. You'll notice that there is no air conditioning in the premise. Right underneath that, you'll see that according to the income expense mailer that the subject or the owners filed for this property, they're charging a base rent of $6.90 on 10,310 square feet. It's lease space. I take it. I'm not sure why we didn't include the other rent. There's another rent on the property also. If you turn to page 3 of 4, you'll see the income expense that the owners mailed in. So they're bringing in a rental income of $102,189.96. There's some recoveries down at the bottom for a total income of $131,059.34. And then they have some expenses there. Obviously, they put in the building amortization, but we don't include that in our workups for NOI. Underneath that is the tenant roll. And then on the last page is just their signature when they sent them in. So again, we're asking for a confirmation of the RSS value of $110,100 for ARV.
Thank you. Brad?
Most of it's going to be easier if I just go through my stuff. But you show here, Galvanic is the, on your page 3, Galvanic is the premise that we're talking about here, correct?
Correct, yes.
And so they show there a 10,300 square foot area.
Yes.
And you have, and the premise area that the city records is 12,940.
Yes, so I'm not sure if it was broken up at one time, when it was broken up. We never received any occupancy permit.
And that's fine. So you worked off of the income and expense mailer, correct?
Yes.
So I see here that this is the questionnaire that was dated, due date May 6, 2019.
Correct.
So this is post-reference.
The year is
2018 with a cutoff of April 1.
Yeah, but their year ends on July 31st, 2018.
Which is also post-reference, right?
You got these rents are in place prior to that, though.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
And Lynn?
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand. This is Galvanic Corrosion Technologies.
Right.
And
so we're utilizing $6.40 on 12,940 square feet, whereas they're charging $6.90 on 10,000.
what?
And then
What are we doing with? What's the explanation of the other 2,000?
yeah, so we need to have our adjusted. Somebody needs to go and inspect the premise.
So is their actual premise 12,940 square feet, or is it the 10,000?
From what they submitted in their income expense, it's 10,300, but they haven't notified somebody to come out and inspect. So we're still utilizing 12,940.
Your records show there's something else in there, a second rent?
Yes, from the latest, or not the latest, the one from 2019
Right.
income expense. Yes.
So, yeah.
Right.
So based on what we're seeing on page 3 and 4, it looks like there's
Correct. Yes.
two premises, but your records still are showing it as one total
One, yes.
premise. With no air conditioning in the premise,
In neither.
in the entire premise. Okay, thank you.
Mark?
Not at this point.
So Utopia took occupancy in 2008.
Correct.
Would an inspection not have been conducted then?
Not right off the income expense, because it's students who put the income expenses into our system. Had a assessor seen that maybe, there would have been a field assistant go out there.
Something would have triggered.
Right.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
I did have one other quick question. I just want the assessor, or perhaps the assessor could verify that the owner of the property is not related to either of the two tenants, correct?
I do not believe so. The owner is stated as a number company.
Okay, thank you.
And you may proceed, Greg.
Thanks. So it's really short and sweet. I'm going to try and explain this with our documentation starting on page 9. I have included excerpts of the lease. So this lease was originally entered into on the 31st day of October 2011. This is a renewal. And so if we look at page 10, you'll see there that they've actually extended from November 1st of 18 through November 1st of 2015, extending through October 31st of 2018. They also at that time expanded their area from 10,300 to 12,940 square feet. So the city does have the correct premise area. And I have no idea why the owner would submit what they did there, but they're not related in any way to the tenant here. So you'll see there that the rate per square foot, and I haven't accounted for the free rent that's shown in here, but if we look at the highlighted section in the middle of page 10, you'll see there that the rate is $550 per square foot on 12,940 square feet. And if we take a look at page 12, that will help you to sort of visualize the expanded space. So they were occupying one portion of it, and then towards the rear of the property, they expanded to the size and absorbed some of that space as well. So expansion 2,640 square feet, total area 12,940 square feet. So I hope that helps clarify what's going on here. So in addition to the actual lease in place, I took a look at some rental comparables, and we show those on page 5. And you'll see there, some are located in the Fort Garry area, and some of them are outside of the Fort Garry area. $550 per square foot is certainly well supported within this range of rental comps. It's what the property was leased for on an arm's length basis. And so we're suggesting that $5.50 rate be applied. There is not, to my knowledge, office space within here. This is strictly an industrial or an industrial use for this space. There's no disagreement with respect to the occupancy costs. And I did just want to show you the pictures on page 8. This is an elevated slab building, and so your clear ceiling height is a little bit lower than the actual wall height shows. And you'll see there a picture on the north side, which is the subject premise area. And you'll see also there at the bottom on page 8, a section or the rear view for this property. That's the west side of the property behind Otter Street. And you'll see there 2, I'll call them people doors. The loading doors are on the north side and the south side of the premise. And so we're looking for a reduction based on all of that to $98,460. Thank you.
Thank you. Bree, any questions?
Yeah. Okay. I'm just looking at your page 9, the amendment to the lease. Do you have the actual lease amount that they're paying anywhere on there?
On page 10. It's highlighted, and I went over it. So if we look at the highlighted section in the middle of the page, the rent is $550 per square foot on 12,940 square feet.
And maybe I didn't hear, so are they using 10,300 or not?
The lease for this tenant is for a total of 12,940 square feet. And if you look at page 12, you'll see there where that extra 2,640 square feet of area comes from. So they had 10,300 square feet. They expanded it to include this extra area, and they now have 12,940.
So do you know why the owner would put two different tenants?
I have no relationship with the owner whatsoever.
Okay, on page 5, your comparables, the subject is, well, let's say 13,000 square feet, just under.
Right.
All your comparables are, you have a leasable area of more than 26,000 square feet?
That's correct, but as I indicated, I don't believe that there's any and I inspected this property more than 15 years ago, so the physical condition then is different than now, very likely, but I don't believe that there is any office space within the subject premise. All of the rental comparables, I believe, would have some office space, and so $550 a square foot is the open market arm's length lease as between landlord and tenant.
Are the tenant and the landlord related, or?
I don't believe so, no. We don't have any, there was no 2020 appeal filed on this property. We don't work for the owner. We have been retained by the tenant of this space.
Thank you. Lynn?
I have no questions, thank you.
No questions.
And I have no questions.
Okay. I could explain it a little bit further, but it's just getting into more details. Property sold a lot of years ago, and the numbered company that purchased it was back in, I want to say 2003, 2004. This company didn't occupy this premise, this property until 2011. There's no relationship between tenant and landlord.
Thank you. So, the last one is 1641 Seal Avenue. I just have to bring it up. And Larry, if you can proceed.
Okay, Board of Revision file number 19-5287, roll years 2020, address is 1641 Steel Avenue. Business assessment ID is 1376, and the owners of the business are Grand and Toy Limited. Total ARV is assessed at 272,100. The total area of the premise is 30,517 square feet. We're utilizing an overall ARV of $8.92 per square feet. Underneath is our calculation. So you'll see our base ARV that utilizes $6.71. And then occupancy costs, you'll notice that not all of the premises air conditioned. Total occupancy costs work out to $67,349. That gives us an annual ARV of $272,100. Underneath that is our rent comparables. So there's 5 comparables there. You'll notice that the leasable areas are all within a measured, they're all within the range of the subject there. All the leases are current in respect to the reference date. The net rents range from $6.92 to $9.84. And we're asking for confirmation of the total ARV is $272,100.
Thank you. Questions, Brad?
I do not, thank you.
Lynn?
No questions.
Mark?
No questions.
And I have no questions. Okay, Brad, you're up.
Okay. So this is the Grand and Toy warehouse in Fort Garry. We've taken a look at a number of rental.
Move your microphone down a bit.
How's that?
Perfect.
Yeah, it seems when I bend my head down, it doesn't pick it up as well. Go figure. So we go through a physical description of the property on page 3. It has a relatively low wall height. It has 18-foot wall height, which leaves you with about 16-foot clear ceiling. And as we've talked about in previous properties today, that in my mind diminishes the amount of rent that you might be able to realize out of that particular property. We've gone through we show rather on page 5 a number of rental comparables. Again, this is owner occupied. So we show a number of rental comparables there. They range between 576 an average of 576, median of 588. Based on all of that, we're applying $6 per square foot. I can tell you that the 2020 realty assessment was heard. There was a modest adjustment by the board. And I can also tell you that we disagreed with the decision and that there is an appeal pending at the municipal board for 2020 with respect to the realty. We sought the same $6 rate in that hearing based on the characteristics of this property. There is no disagreement on the occupancy costs or the areas that they've been applied to. And so we're looking for a reduction to $250,560. And that's what I wanted to cover.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just two simple questions. Could you give me the addresses of your comps on page 5 for comp number 2 and 3, please?
Yep, hang on one sec.
And also 6, please.
Okay, which ones did you want to know?
2, 3, and 6.
Okay, number 2 is 1249 Clarence. 3 is 1725 Inkster, and I can tell you that both of those rents were presented by the city at board revision hearings. And 6 is 154 Paramount.
Thank you. Lynn,
I have no questions.
Mark? And I have no questions. That concludes the hearing this morning. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Thank you very much.
Thank you.